Scribbled notes, scribbled notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Pray for me. Einstein with my energy.
Welcome to the Scribbled Notes podcast. How are you today? I'm so excited to have you on this episode.
Thank you very much.
Why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners? A person who should not need much introduction, but I feel like this is a great opportunity for you to connect with some of them.
My name is Dyrk Ashton, and I'm the author of the Paternus Trilogy. And thanks, Jahmil, for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. For those who don't know, Dyrk has done so many cool things in his life. To have opportunities to be on films, acting, writing books, winning awards, all types of stuff. So don't let this little small introduction fool you.
It feels like I've lived like 6 lives at this point. I'm old enough.
You want to talk a little bit about your life and your journey, and how you got to the point where you became a writer and an author?
Oh, okay. I had, I guess when I was a kid, I wanted to be a herpetologist and study reptiles, and then I wanted to be a gunsmith, and then I wanted to be a swordsmith, and then I wanted an armorer, and never a policeman or a fireman. It was always that weird stuff. And but I had always been interested in, artistic and creative stuff, and I liked writing things when I was a kid, just little things, and actually tried to write a weird like sci-fi superhero novel when I was in high school. But at that time, we didn't have computers. We were I wrote it all with a pencil on pads of paper, but never finished it, of course, because high school kid. And but I really got into filmmaking. I went to school. My first 2 years, actually, I studied business, but the whole time I was hanging out with people and making short films, and some of them were in studying film, and I ended up going to film school at Ohio State University when they had a real nice, highly rated film school, and took screenwriting courses and production courses, all that kind of stuff, and stayed and got my master's degree and produced a low budget feature film called Beyond Dream's Door. Low budget. And then I worked in the film business, worked my way up as a production assistant PA, lowly PA, and grip, and then was production coordinating, and ended up producing as a production manager and producer on commercials, short films, and another couple of low budget features. Did a spec pilot for TV, and that was all out of Columbus, Ohio. Then I moved to LA and lived in LA for nearly 6 years. I got my SAG card, my AFTER card. Never wanted to be an actor, but it's great being an actor, but that wasn't my goal. I was writing screenplays while I was there, and wanted to produce and write, and had a lot of really close, almost big, cool things happen. But I got a proposal for a television series picked up by Francis Ford Coppola's American Zoetrope TV. But it ended up getting turned down by the financiers out of Canada at that time. They were getting a lot of financing, shooting a lot in Canada. Had scripts read by Scott Free, Ridley Scott's company, and they liked it, but never went anywhere. New Line Cinema, same thing. So, same old. Meanwhile, I made my living as an actor, mostly commercials, TV, feature films, little tiny parts, and in some cool films though. And I was always, writing screenplays. And then I left LA, went back to school to get my PhD in film studies. So since then, I've been a professor of film production and film studies because of my master's in production. I could teach production, and so I've taught, everything from 16 millimeter film production with Bolex cameras, and to video production, digital video production, and producing and production management, screenwriting, but also cult cinema, film history, film theory, film censorship, film the list. I mean, I think I've taught 20 different kinds of classes, specialty classes like Spider-Man and Friends, on comic book films and stuff like that. But in 2010, to make a longer story short, I can write, but I can't speak. And some might question that I can write. I left in 2010 my full-time position to teach only online as an adjunct, and that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years now. So I had time to read fantasy again, because that's was always my favorite thing. I've been reading. I was an early reader as a kid and just never stopped until I was in grad school for the PhD. There was no time to do any reading for fun, and all through teaching. And I could read again. So I was like catching up on all these series that I had heard about, like, Joe Abercrombie, and reading things that I had never read before because I didn't have time, like Harry Potter. I read everything. Doesn't matter what age range it is. Got into Game of Thrones long before it became a TV series. And had always wanted to get back into writing. I've always wanted to write a fantasy novel, and found that I actually had time right around the middle of 2011, late 2011. I had time, so I just said, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. So every day I'd spend a few hours taking notes, putting together ideas, things like that. And then after writing 2 novels that were cut down to 1 novel, Paternus, the first book, was done, and I put it out in 2016, May 1st of 2016, and have been really, really lucky, super lucky. I mean, I don't make big bucks, but just to be able to sell any books at all and supplement is a miracle, honestly, in this business, because the vast majority of people aren't able to. But I got super lucky with the SPFBO, getting in there and actually becoming a finalist and placing 3rd. And that's the Self-Published Fantasy Blog Off, for those of you who haven't heard of it. And it's originated and kind of run by Mark Lawrence of Prince of Thorns fame, and a lot of other books after that. Great guy, kind of a saint, a patron saint of self-published authors at this point. Quite a few have gone on to, those who wanted to, have gone on to get big trad publishing deals, like Jonathan French and Josiah Bancroft, and I think there are 3 or 4 others at this point. Though I haven't been able to keep up with it as much since then. And I was in there the same year that Jonathan French and Josiah Bancroft were in. Yeah. And Josiah's final book in his Books of Babel, his first book was in the SPFBO when I was in it in 2016. And that was the second year they ran it. And his final book just came out last month, or earlier this month. Yeah. the Fall of Babel, with Orbit Books.
Such a journey overall.
Yeah, and I finished my trilogy. It took, I write very slowly. A lot of self-published authors will put out a book every 2 months. And it's just like, I'm more like every year and a half, if I'm lucky. So you don't have to crank them out. It does help, but some people write fast and some people don't,
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of self-published authors about just that same concept. Like, putting your book out fast and being able to write quickly is a huge benefit, but at the same time, for myself, I know it's super hard. I'm like,
well, there's always been a hard rule. I mean, this is a hard and fast rule in film, and it absolutely holds, is you can have cheap, fast, and good, but you can't have all three, right? You can have any two. And I believed that to also apply to writing. I've since been absolutely shocked to learn that I was wrong. I know I have very good friends who can write a 200,000 word book in 2 or 3 months, and it's fantastic. It's a great book. And I'm just like, okay, I guess they can do it. I just can't, but there's always going to be somebody who's faster and better. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's kind of the business model of it too. I wanted to ask you about that because you've been extremely successful running Kickstarter campaigns. I remember I ran a GoFundMe campaign when I launched my first book and got enough money to cover all the initial expenses.
Nice.
I didn't realize there were so many.
Because a lot of first-time authors, they don't fund.
Yeah,
so you must have had a good network.
I did. I'm blessed. I work at a university, so I'm connected to a bunch of people who work at universities, and then I was just very lucky that I had the people around me that were willing to contribute so much.
Now didn't all the people in the English department say, we're not listening to that guy, unless do you have an MFA?
I do not. I have a master's in counseling. So
even my friends who have MFAs, who had them be, now I have a lot of friends now who are writers that have MFAs, but we met after we were already publishing. There are a lot of folks that have MFAs that are like, self-publish.
Yeah, as if
it's not count. Real books.
Yeah, those aren't real books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've met a lot of people, or I was lucky enough to have a lot of people who were close to me. So most of the donations are people I knew.
Right.
But I know for you, you've been able to raise a ton of money from people you don't know, which is just amazing because
it's amazing.
Running some of those Kickstarter campaigns is not easy. How do you do that, and how much of a part of your business is that?
I had like Michael J. Sullivan and Robin Sullivan, big, super successful. Like, there's me, and then they're up there somewhere, right? And I do okay. But they have been big on Kickstarters for a long time. Now, where they raise $100,000-$200,000, I'm thrilled to do 20 and then 30 and then 40 on my fourth one, on my third Kickstarter. So mine were super successful because I didn't ask for that much. It was well over what I had asked for as my funding goal. Because if you don't reach your funding goal on a Kickstarter, you don't get any of the money. You just don't get it. I really did not want to do it because it's a lot of work. I mean, you put together a GoFundMe, it's a lot of work. And because you have to budget everything out and put it all together and keep it all straight, and then handle all that production stuff. Now, having been a producer and production manager, I'm all about production schedules and what has to come first, second, third, and like a lot of really complicated issues. So compared to making a film, making a book is not nearly as complex, but it's still a lot to keep in mind. And I also, when I worked in film, that's what I did full time. And I don't get to do this stuff full time, right? Not yet, anyway. We'll see one day, hopefully. So, because I still teach for 3 different universities, different classes as an independent contractor, adjunct professor. And that's my day job. I still have to do that, plus, the house and the family and all that kind of thing, all those kinds of things. So it's a lot of work. So I knew it was, and I just didn't want to do it. And finally they convinced me, and Phil Tucker had run one, and he convinced me to do it. And so I did it, and it did really well. And then, of course, once it's done, you have to actually get those books produced, and then get them shipped to you, store them somewhere, pack them all, and ship them all out, right?
Yep. The whole process.
Yeah.
I'm lucky I have a wife. My wife really knows what she's doing when it comes to that stuff.
That is awesome.
She was
a lot
helpful.
of it's really cool. A lot of the most successful self-pub authors I know are husband-wife teams. One of them, it's the woman who does all the writing, and he does a lot of the business work. Will White, one of the most successful authors in the world. Most people would say, who? Right?
Yeah.
Well, he sells as many. He sells a lot of books.
Yep.
These big names you hear about, yeah, he sells as many as they do. He hires his whole family. I mean, he's got like a bunch of his family on full time to help him out. I actually hire my nieces and nephews, and my sister, and my ex-girlfriend and her daughters. They come and, help do the stuff. So that helps a lot. I have to pay them. Well, I want to pay them. Right. It's worked out. It's worked out really well. I still have the final fulfillment to do, pack up and ship out. I now have everything I need for my last Kickstarter. But we're under renovations in the house right now. They start Friday, so I had to clear out the entire basement, and everything is packed into the garage or a container, and I have nowhere to pack 300 trilogy and slipcase and hardbacks. You need room to do that. And I've got 300 to send out, and it's going to be a big job, and I have no room to do it in the house because they're renovating the bathrooms, which means all that space around there can't be used, including the living room and the front basement where I did all my packing. Is completely empty. This weekend I moved all the old furniture that was stored out of there, and all the books. I mean, a ton of paperbacks, ton of hardbacks. And I just got 3 pallets of slipcases for the trilogies just came in, right? So that has been the first one I didn't make money on, but you asked if that was part of my business plan. It's not really. So that money has all been, and I made a little bit of money on the second one and more on the third, because I also had books 1 and 2 available that were already paid for from the first 2. So the third one worked out quite nicely, but I won't be doing one for several years now because I'm under contract for a new trilogy that's not just mine. So I can't just decide to do that. Though I am working as a contractor to help out with Wraithmarked, is a small press who I'm also writing this trilogy for on their Kickstarters. And we just ran the first one a couple months ago and are in post-production, and I'm handling all the book production stuff. And that went really well. So yeah, I mean, there are other things that I do besides just writing and teaching, and it's been a busy year.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I know there's so many authors, so many people who are getting started inside the space, and looking for direction or looking for things to do outside of just writing, because I think the writing and the writing is the most fun piece. I'm not going to pretend it's not. That's the most fun of it all.
It's the most fun and the most depressing when it's not going quite right. But, that's just part of the job.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's all the time. I like joke around that the writing is what you want to do, but then once it's done, you have to publish and you have to go through the process. And for a lot of people, that's just not the piece that they enjoy. And I know
self-publishing requires a certain entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
And I don't I don't seek out I haven't been seeking out a traditional publishing agreement, but I wouldn't turn one down if it came along and it was okay. But it's something I can take or leave. So self-publishing works out well for me right now, even though I am doing something on contract right now. And but it's kind of a hybrid self-pub contract sort of, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun. And it gets me a little money, which is nice. But I'm having a great time writing it when I can find the time to make it happen. And but there are people who just there's no way I don't want to self-pub, and they might do better, right? Because a lot of traditionally published authors still have to have their day jobs. A lot that you've heard of still work, because you just don't make that much money. Even if you get $150,000 deal for a trilogy, that's paid out over like 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So you split that up in 3 or 4 years, and then you've got your taxes and your agent's fees, right? And whatever other fees there might be, if you use lawyers' fees, if you pay legal fees, stuff like that, or a lawyer's percentage, sometimes they take that. It comes down to not all that much money, unless you can leapfrog and get those books done really fast. So there are a lot of people with 5-6 books out, traditionally published, that still are working because they really need to. Either that or they're subsisting on not a terrific salary. So Tradpub, there are people that make really good money doing that, and the years go up and down. It's but Tradpub's the same way. You never really know unless you get a really big hit. It's really hard to make a living. So but I have no problem. People who want to go Tradpub and can't do, that's great, because it's hard. It's like you got to start up your own business. You got to do all your own production, promotion, marketing, scheduling, everything. You can't just publish a book and put it on Amazon and put it in KDP and expect it to do anything at all. I mean, that has happened. That has happened. But it's so incredibly rare. It's like winning the lottery. You might as well just buy lottery tickets or do that too, because your chances of winning that way are just as, but you still have to produce, you still have to get artwork, you still have to get it formatted, you still have to get it edited and proofread. You still have to do all that kind of stuff. But there's dealing with Amazon Marketing Services, AMS advertising, Facebook advertising, all these things which can be absolutely critical to success. Some people spend a lot of time on social media, and that's how they get the word out. And then I know folks who do nothing on social media and do really, really well. So you just never know. And what works for one book doesn't necessarily work for the next book. And that includes for the same author, right? They write a series that's incredibly successful, write the next series, and by all the check boxes, it should be just as successful, and it isn't. Right. And they've done all the same things, and they've learned a lot in the process, and still doesn't work. So you just really never know. It's hard.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more unpredictable spaces where other places, other platforms and things, like I've been looking up print on demand T-shirts and merchandise. A lot of that is replicatable, right? There's so much that you can do that someone else did. This is formulaic. Where I've noticed with writing, especially, it just is successful. My first book, I remember, was super successful. Did so well on Amazon and still is like up there in some of the rankings and some of the categories. My second book, it was a lot less. And I wondered why. So I started to look into some of the numbers and analytics, and I really couldn't find much outside of it just isn't seen as much. And then I think the other piece is that it is a second book in a trilogy. So it'll probably do better when the third book comes out. And
it was everybody told me that. They said, don't spend too much money on book one on advertising. I did spend a little just because I wanted to keep it in front of people, especially since my books were like a year and a half between when they came out, and as opposed to 3 months like some people do. They've got their next excuse me, sorry about that. They've got their next book up for pre-order as soon as the first book comes out, but and then the second book didn't do quite as well because the read through wasn't as much, and it wasn't a let's give this a try kind of book anymore. But then everybody told me, you got to get it finished, then really hit the advertising, and you'll see. And the audiobooks make a huge difference. This my book 3 came out last July. The audiobook came out in December, and this year has been by far my best year in sales because of end of last year and this year. And things are starting to slow down a little bit now, but still, even at this level, it's still better than I had done at any time with book 1 and book 2.
Before we continue, here's a message from this episode's sponsor, Workaholics. Workaholics is an American apparel company that specializes in fitness merchandise. They create clothing that gives you a comfortable feel even when the workout's tough. When your tank is on E, ask yourself, how hard you working? That defines them, but that's the question that also will help you become the best version of yourself. You can follow them at work_merch_ on Instagram. That's at work, WERK _merch_ on Instagram. Let's get back to the show.
So I think that's always good to hear. Partly because a lot of people
don't give up.
A lot of people talked about that. They said like you have to think of it logically too, that if there's something that's not necessarily complete, then it's a little bit harder for people to invest in. Where the first book is almost easier to say, let me try this, let me see it. And the second book, it's almost like if I didn't read the first one, I have to do that first before I get to the next one.
Yeah, and then there are the books which have to actually not just hear it, but let it sink in, that are anomalies, where people put one book out and it becomes this enormous success, and they don't even really know what they did, and it's just the first book in a series. Will White was like that with the Cradle series. We've had him on our podcast twice now. Alec Hudson with Crimson Queen. And then there Battle Mage, is another one. There are these books that the first book just gets huge, even though the other ones aren't done. But again, those are the anomalies. You cannot expect that. If you're expecting that, you're just expecting to win the lottery and then beating yourself up and getting angry because your numbers didn't come up in the lottery. And that just sounds silly, right?
Yep.
It sounds silly when you're thinking about, oh, God damn it, no, I'm terrible. I suck. This is stupid. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's the same thing, though. Honestly, just you're okay. You just gotta keep going. Not everybody wins the lottery.
Yeah,
So,
not everyone wins it every time they play.
yeah, and they wrote great books. Do they know? But there are great books that just languish. People don't. Something doesn't happen, right? Because so there is luck. You can do everything that you can do, but that's all you can do. There's nothing else you can. The most important thing is the best thing you can do for your career and your last sales of your last book is write the next book. That's the number one best thing you can do. So don't worry too much beyond that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm of that mindset now as well.
Good.
Just because you can sit and think all day about running more ads or trying new words and different keywords with ads and different demographics. I've done so many tests and spent a lot of money just trying things out. Which I think is important because you do have to know what works. And now I have some stuff that I know works. If I want to reach people, this will get the best reach and best engagement. But you can't guarantee success that way. And you can't guarantee success in this environment anyway, because there's so much that comes to it. There's lots of authors, there's lots of books being published. Sometimes you
more and more.
Yeah. I remember last year when I released my book, my first book, my brother and I were competing against Daniel Green, who does a ton of stuff. But he released his first book at the same month.
He became famous with a podcast. Right?
He became famous, and Daniel Green, he releases his books, and now I'm like, oh man, we're both fantasy. We're gonna be competing against each other and this and that. Yeah. And it was just funny because we ended up doing really well, but part of that's because we weren't competing with anyone in our specific type of release. His book was a different type of book, and
and we talk about that. My friends and I talk about that. I'm in a writers group, and we talk about that kind of stuff all the time. And I don't want to release when Brandon Sanderson releases, or I'm not releasing when that damn Will White releases, and he's in the group. Or when David Estes or AC Cobble or Miranda Monfleur or anybody are getting ready to release something, and then we do, and it inevitably comes out the same day that the next Sanderson or Abercrombie book comes out, right? Or Sarah J. Maas, and we're like, oh no, and then it doesn't make any difference. We do just fine. A rising tide, raises all ships, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really, you can try to strategize and everything else, but it is what it is, and there's only so much you can do. All you don't want to do is release like right at Christmas.
You don't want to compete with the holiday, but I've noticed that with a lot of authors. One of the things I was going to ask was marketing. A lot of authors struggle to market or struggle to stay keeping their book in the conversation. I've talked to some who really had really cool perspectives about how the book doesn't just lose its value because it was a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. So you have to continue to talk about your book and talk about your series. What's been your experience with marketing books?
I got into Amazon or AMS ads early on. Well, by early on, I mean 6-8 months after my first book came out. And because I didn't even know what it was before that. So I did that. Now, I spent a lot of time talking to other authors on social media and readers. And people see that, and that has helped me a lot. But again, I know a lot of people who don't, and they do just fine. I think it's critical in my particular situation. My book is a little different. It's not your standard farm boy fantasy or grimdark fantasy or straight on urban fantasy. It's it's weird shit. So people aren't, people don't grasp right away exactly what it is. And yep, it's a dragon book. It's a, or it's a magic school book, or it's not any of those things that are easy to grab a hold of. So, or it's, it's Jim Butcher, or it's Kevin Hearn, or, or any number of the other authors who write more straightforward urban fantasy, wizard demon hunter with a franchise. It's not really like that. So even though it is urban fantasy, so it's not that easy. So I think just getting people, and you only get one reader at a time. But I struggled with that kind of advertising. But then there are classes you can take online. You can read a lot. Researching online is critical, to that kind of thing. And you want to do that before you go out and start asking of people a lot of questions, because you go out and you ask more experienced authors about a lot of stuff. They're like, well, have you read this or looked at this? No. Go do that and then come talk to me. Because otherwise, it's like, you want me to write you the books that have already been written about it? So, happy to help, but still, if you've already done some groundwork, then that helps a lot. And you can just do it from those kinds of things. And they have worked. The thing is that how effective it is changes a lot. What to bid, how to do this, how to do that, is like, well, this worked great for a year and suddenly it doesn't. What do I do now? Right. So then you have to
change.
Yeah, then you have to try something else. I just got into Facebook advertising for the first time only when my audiobook for the full trilogy came out on Audible. And that was in last January. Very first time I ever tried it. Well, end of December, early January.
How'd it go?
And I flailed around and it was a horrible mess. And then talked to some friends, read about it, talked to some friends who had been doing it for a while. And now I do it regularly. And it's been critical for me to the success. And yet I'll talk to somebody else who's far more successful than I am. And they're like, yeah, I can't get Facebook ads to affect my rank or sales at all, and they're doing the same thing I'm doing. It's just, you never know.
Yeah,
what's going to work. And like I said, what works for one book doesn't work for another.
Yes. And I think a lot of that is important for anyone listening to kind of take in, that you're going to try things and it's not necessarily all going to work, but that's not a bad thing either.
No.
Because you have to check off some boxes to say this doesn't work, so I don't do that anymore. And that'll help you with your business model as you're continuing to grow and
you'll throw some money away. You'll throw a little bit of money away, but you've got to just to know, because you don't know. I mean, you just don't know. My Facebook ads, if spend goes up and impressions and clicks goes up, my sales go up. And if they go down, my sales go down. It's just that closely tied, right?
Yep.
So it's and then I have folks who are like, man, I just turned off my Facebook ad and everything is better. I'm selling more books. How does that even work? It makes no sense. Yeah,
that happens sometimes too. I've been so one thing I do when I'm putting my book up for free, I'll run ads on the book.
And that's part of a marketing strategy, right?
Yes.
Every once in a while you do price pulsing, you drop it to 99 cents, send out to your newsletters, right? Websites, there's all that stuff we haven't even come close to. There's so many things that you have to have.
And all of it matters and all of it makes a difference, even if it's a small difference, because I think a lot of times you just said something earlier that I really wanted to touch on, is that you're really getting one reader at a time. You're touching one person's life at a time. So that's really all you need to do is impact one person, and then they become a fan, or they like the book, and then they'll get the second, or they'll get the third.
And they'll tell people.
And then they'll tell people, then they and it slowly expands. It's not going to be this, I get 1,000 people at once.
Yeah, exactly. So celebrate anytime someone posts and says, oh, I just read your book and I love your book, celebrate that, share it, right? Because it is just one person at a time, one reader at a time.
It makes the biggest difference. And especially when you're starting off, you don't really have many fans or many readers. Every reader should matter. And then as you grow, every reader still matters, because that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps it working. I've been lucky enough to get my book reviewed by people on YouTube sometimes. Yeah. And I always love it because one, I'm just a random person who lives in Connecticut in my mind. Yeah. They're in Canada reviewing my book and enjoying the series. So I always like to keep that in perspective when I'm struggling or if I'm upset that I'm not getting more sales. Yeah. Like, look, there are people everywhere that are like enjoying the book, that are looking forward to this next one. Yeah. You're only going to get more people to read it as you continue to write.
Yeah. A review at a blog, is a thrill, fan art. I remember it was just not that long ago, like a year ago, maybe, when somebody posted their first fan art. And I've got a few now, and they're it's just like, whoa, holy crap. Because you see, like, Nicholas Eames is posting all this incredibly great stuff for Kings of the Wild, right? And Bloody Rose, and Pierce Brown with Red Rising. Of course, he's hugely successful too, but and I'm like, oh man, you've made it when somebody does that. And then like Felix Ortiz, of all people, super talented, posted some, and then Stas Borodin posted some, and I'm like, yeah, because then that these people who you love their stuff, they read your book and they liked your book and they drew a picture.
It's like they loved it enough to actually draw it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. So we're coming up on the end of our time. I wanted to give you opportunity to just plug where people can find the book, where they can get the series, because we didn't even talk about it yet, but your series has been just one of the biggest as far as just success that I've seen from the self-publishing world. It's
good. I think it's the people who really love the book seem to really love the books. I wrote it for people like me. I wanted to write a book that I wanted to read, and there are people who really seem to love it. There are a whole lot of people who don't like it because of the way it's written or any number of things. But that's okay. I think so. So the people who like it talk about it a lot. So I think maybe it makes it seem like it sells a lot more than it does. but it is, it does do really well. I failed. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to go right back there.
Go ahead.
The full trilogy is complete, and it's available on Amazon. Paternus, with a blurb there by Mike Carey, an amazing M.R. Carey, wrote Girl with All the Gifts. This one is book 2 with a blurb from Anthony Ryan, which is awesome. My buddies call me the blurb collector because I have all these awesome blurbs. I just got lucky getting these. And this is Nick Eames, author of Bloody Rose. Blurb this one. This is book 3. It's a monster. They're all available on Amazon. They're in Amazon KDP and Amazon KU, which means you can read them for free if you're in Kindle Unlimited. That's the only place the ebooks are available, but the paperbacks are also available on Book Depository, and there are laminate hardbacks available on Book Depository as well. So and on Amazon. So that's where you can find those. I'm at www.paternousbooks.com. I'm on Twitter, just search Dyrk Ashton. Facebook, same thing. Instagram, same thing. It's Undyrk, UNDYRK. So at Undyrk, Instagram and Twitter, and at Undyrk on Reddit Fantasy as well. So I'm around.
So I want to leave you with one last question, and it's for anyone that's starting as an author. What are some of the business things that they should be aware of as they're embarking on this journey of being a self-published author specifically?
Well, if you know you're going to do self-pub, just Amazon is the place to be. That's where you need to go. And then you can decide if you want to do Kindle Unlimited, which means your ebooks are only available on Amazon. But financially at this point, that's the best place to be. It's really, really difficult to go wide, they call it, and make as much money as you can make in KU for right now. That you can always pull out. You only have to sign up for 90 days if you don't like it or it doesn't do well for you, and then compare. I was not in KU, did not want to be for the first 6-8 months. And then my friends convinced me, give it a try. And I've never been able to go back because I made more in the first week in KU than I had made in sales on Google iBooks, Google Books, iBooks, and Kobo, and the others combined in the first 6 months. That gives you some idea.
Wow.
So there are people that are wide that do really well, but they got in some years ago when you could do that. Everybody else I know who did that ended up going into KU and then they're like, yeah, should have done that a while ago. It's a love-hate relationship with Amazon, but that's where you want to go. The important thing though is to make sure your book is formatted professionally inside, have a good cover, do a lot of research on what other books like yours look like, and don't try to do something completely different. It's just not going to help. I tried to do some things like that early on, including the way I wrote my blurbs and what I would and wouldn't do on my description on Amazon. And finally I buckled. And of course, what happened? Sales went up. So more people were reading it and more people were liking it. So it's like, yeah, okay. I wrote the book that inside, it's still the book that I want. Outside, I love the artwork and everything, but that's not the original cover. The description is not the original description on Amazon. Everything has been changed and it's more in line with what people expect. And it works. And as long as you still like it, then why not? Why not do it? Right. So make sure it's proofread, make sure it's well edited. And you can do well.
Hey, thank you so much for dropping this knowledge and giving us an opportunity to connect with you today. It's been wonderful.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This has been an episode of Scribbled Notes. You already know, like the video, subscribe, comment if you have any questions. This was awesome. I feel like we all are getting educated. We all are learning things today. And thank you so much, Dyrk, for making some time for us.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Peace out.
Scribbled notes. Scribbled notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me. With or without a degree, don't question my intensity. Bravery, similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Pray for me. Pray for me. Einstein with my energy, mass times infinity.